You know, when a person suffers a severe burn, the danger isn't just from the fire itself, not at all. It's the body's own overwhelming response that can be just as deadly. So today, we're going to dive into how a very specific class of hormones can help turn the tide in this incredibly high-stakes battle.
And this really is the central question, isn't it? It's what doctors in the ICU are wrestling with every single day. How do you possibly win a fight against the body's own defenses? How do you calm this internal rebellion without completely shutting down the systems that are supposed to be protecting you?
So, let's set the scene. The fire is out, the initial trauma is over, but inside the body, a war is just beginning. The body sounds every single alarm it has, kicking off a massive chain reaction that can be just as dangerous as the burn itself. And this brings us to the two main villains of our story. See, a massive burn triggers this full-body systemic inflammation. It's chaos, and this chaos leads to two major crises. First, you've got burn shock, which is a rapid, catastrophic loss of fluid from the bloodstream. And second, there's sepsis, which is this devastating body-wide infection. These are the twin threats that doctors are in a race against time to defeat.
Okay, so when the body's defenses are in total disarray, what do? You need to call in the generals. And luckily, the body has its own. They're called corticosteroids.
Now, these aren't just some synthetic drug invented in a lab. They're actually versions of hormones our own bodies produce naturally. They're made in the adrenal glands, these small but really powerful little organs sitting right on top of your kidneys. The most famous one, of course, is cortisol. You've probably heard of it as the stress hormone. Its job is to be the ultimate regulator, the commanding officer that controls inflammation and keeps the whole immune system from going haywire.
And the body has this just beautifully clear chain of command for this whole process. It's really elegant. So when the brain's hypothalamus senses a major stress, like a severe burn, it sends a signal to the pituitary gland. The pituitary then acts like a dispatcher, right? It sends an order down to the adrenal glands, which then on command release cortisol into the bloodstream to manage the crisis.
What's really cool is that cortisol works at two different speeds. Think of it like this. There's a slow, strategic path, the genomic path, that provides this long-term fix for inflammation. But there's also a rapid response path, the non-genomic one, that can affect brain function and mood almost instantly. It's like having a long-term plan and a SWAT team on standby. All right, so how do these internal generals fight the first villain we talked about, burn shock? Well, the core of the problem is leaky defenses. So the body's inflammatory storm causes the walls of its tiniest blood vessels, the capillaries, to become super porous. It's like they just spring leaks everywhere. They start gushing massive amounts of fluid and protein out of the bloodstream and into all the surrounding tissues. And when that happens, blood pressure just plummets and organs start to fail from the lack of blood flow. It is a full-blown crisis. So, to fight this, studies have explored using hydrocortisone, which is basically a synthetic version of cortisol. And you might be surprised, we're not talking about massive fire hose amounts. A really key study back in 2015 by Huang and his team found that a continuous low dose of just 200 milligrams per day could be both safe and really effective.
So what does this actually mean for the patient? Well, it's a huge deal. This low dose helps to stabilize those leaky blood vessels. It tells them to tighten up. Patients treated with it needed way less IV fluid pumped into them and fewer vasopressor drugs. Those are the heavy-duty meds used to artificially crank up blood pressure. In short, it helps the body get back in control and stabilize much, much faster.
Okay, so this all sounds great, right? But there's a complication. There's always a complication. What happens when the body's own generals, the adrenal glands themselves, start to falter under the immense pressure of the battle? Well, research shows that in the most severe cases, the adrenal glands can just get exhausted. They run out of steam. And the risk factors for this happening are pretty much what you might expect. The patient's age, the sheer size of the burn, any damage to the lungs from inhaling smoke, and of course, any other underlying health problems. This condition is called adrenal insufficiency, and what it means is that the body simply can't produce its own cortisol right when it needs it the most. The commanders have gone silent, and this, as you can imagine, makes the shock incredibly difficult to treat. It's a huge reason why giving corticosteroids from the outside can be literally life-saving. Now, let's move on to that second major threat, sepsis. Think about it. The skin, our #1 barrier against the outside world, has been destroyed. The immune system is in complete disarray. This is the moment the enemy can breach the walls. And the stakes here could not possibly be higher. In severe burn patients, sepsis is the #1 cause of death. And I want you to just let this number sink in for a second. The mortality rates for sepsis after a major burn range from 50 to as high as 84%. It is an absolute race against time. So, can our hormonal generals help out here too? Well, the evidence is actually pretty compelling. Multiple large-scale analyses have shown that using low-dose corticosteroids in patients with septic shock leads to a whole list of amazing benefits. They help reverse the shock faster, they reduce the need for those blood pressure drugs, and they get patients out of the ICU and the hospital sooner. And most importantly, they're linked to a lower risk of death within 28 days. But, and you knew there was a but coming, this is not a magic bullet. There are risks. Using corticosteroids can lead to side effects like muscle weakness, high blood sugar, and high sodium levels in the blood. All of these things have to be managed incredibly carefully by the medical team. It is a constant, delicate balancing act. So, where does that leave us? What's the final verdict here? Well, it's really clear that corticosteroids aren't a simple yes or no kind of answer. They are a powerful but also an extremely nuanced weapon in the medical arsenal. The big takeaway from all the research is that these hormones are an absolutely vital tool. They have a role to play across the entire timeline of a severe burn injury, from tackling that initial devastating burn shock all the way to fighting off sepsis later on. They help moderate the body's own chaotic and, frankly, self-destructive response. But, and this is a really critical point, the science is still evolving. We're not at the end of the story. Researchers are still working hard to pinpoint the absolute perfect formula, the exact right dose, the best possible time to start the treatment, and how long to continue it. The generals are effective, no doubt, but we're still refining the battle plan.
And, this leaves us with a really fascinating final thought. This whole story, it isn't about some revolutionary new drug from a lab. It's about learning how to precisely use a tool the body already has. And it really makes you wonder, as our understanding of our own internal chemistry gets deeper and deeper, will the future of medicine look more like this? Less about inventing new weapons to fight disease, and more about finely tuning our own amazing internal systems.